Hello and welcome to NebReviews, a new video series type thing I'm doing, which is mainly to do with music and maybe some other things if they really happen to pique my interest really. But for this first video we're going to be focusing on an album which has caused, well, a lot of head scratching recently in the music community. Yeah, it's the new M83 album, Junk. And M83 is an artist which I've had a lot of really admiration for over the past few years, of really since discovering him from his first album, his self-titled, and his most recent one, before this one, Hurry Up We're Dreaming, which is really his absolute magnum opus. But this new album, Junk, is definitely something which I have lost really for words for, really. So M83 is primarily French musician Anthony Gonzalez, and he, as far as I know, is the lead songwriter of the band, and he produces everything, and he's been releasing material for the better part of 15 years now, starting with his self-titled debut, followed up with Dead Cities, Lost Seas and Red Ghosts. The follow-ups after that really kind of signified the huge sounds that really kind of made who M83 really is, and he's one of these artists who tends to experiment a lot with these big sounds, these big production styles. Seeing this progression since his self-titled debut up until even this new album Junk, kind of just how experimental and how just flamboyant he can be with his production styles. But then we get to this album Junk, which from the first few listens of this thing, it really just turned what the last album did completely on its head and did something completely and utterly different. But it's kind of all I can say is that the production on this thing compared to the last one is such a difference, but it's not, in my opinion, not the greatest difference. And with an album title like Junk, you would expect that maybe this name is supposed to be like a play on words or something, but unfortunately it ends up being something which, well, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it kind of maybe is junk, because it's not great. So the first single off of Junk, Do It, Try It, which we heard I think it was a couple months before Junk came out. And when I first heard this song, I did think that it was still the typical M83 production. It was big, the keyboards were really prominent, and the synth was great, the vocal line was great, but at the same time I was thinking it just isn't that much of a significant progression from what Hurry Up We're Dreaming had. It was a song that I thought was very safe. I just thought it was a very safe song. It didn't really kind of push any, I wouldn't say boundaries, but just kind of the songwriting that he was progressing towards through each of his albums. And with this song, the progression from what I first heard, I just think it would have been one of the probably one of the worst tracks on Hurry Up We're Dreaming. It would have probably fit on there still, but it's still a very average song. It didn't really excite me. And then we get to the proper meat of the album after this song with the first track, Go, featuring Mylan. It's a song which is completely different to what Do It, Try It is, but it's a song which is even more safe. It's a song which is even more simple, and it's just so different from what he's done in the past probably decade, to be honest. I mean, the chorus in this thing is so generic, it's so repetitive, and it just builds up to this kind of guitar solo climax, which it does absolutely nothing. And we have the same problem with the next track on this thing, Walk Away Blues, which I really do think is, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but it just sounds like a copy and paste of what Go was. there's this repetitive chorus, there's this kind of good bass line going on in the song, but it just builds up again to this really generic, boring, I think the key is slightly changed, guitar solo, which is just, it again does absolutely nothing, and it just doesn't add anything really to this album. After some of the songs on this album, it goes into these interludes where it doesn't really make a lot of sense into what the music is supposed to be. There's one track on this album, I think it's towards the end, the interlude is very orchestral, it's a very beautiful sounding song, but the previous song, it just doesn't, it does nothing makes it flow into the other whatsoever. And then we get to tracks like For the Kids, which it's a song which I remember when I first heard this, I literally just sat there. There was no reaction to anything that I was sitting and listening to. I just sat there and listened, and I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. It just sounds like it was a piano ballad, but it's one of these piano ballads which is so cheesy. It's so just it is just that. That's the only way I can describe it. Is cheesy, unimaginative, really. The vocals that just make my ears burn, and it just sounds like this, like Celine Dion type Michael Jackson collaboration, which should have never have happened ever in the history of humanity. But luckily the album has some saving graces, like the song Road Blaster, which has it's really just a catchy song with such a really catchy sax part, and it really is one of the shining lights on this album, luckily. And then the last half of the album, after Road Blaster, it kind of just goes back to normal, what we've been hearing for the past 10 tracks or so. And with the last song on this album, Sunday Night 1987, it has this really just random harmonica solo. It's like some weird, just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like a bunch of ideas that Anthony Gonzalez just had, and just tacked them onto it. And can we just talk about this album cover as well for a second, because it's just one of these covers which just made me just took a glance at it many times at why it exists. It's just, I don't know, maybe with this entire album, maybe it's just an entire joke that we're not getting, I don't know, but there's another song on this album which kind of proves my point of the weird production styles that just don't make sense, and that is the song featuring Beck. And it's just such a random featuring collaborator. I mean, this is Beck. I mean, he's got a very famous vocal. You know it's Beck when you hear him, and it's kind of really pushed back into the production, I think. But yeah, that overall Junk is just this weird mixed bag of sounds and ideas that have just been tacked on to this really ironic album title, which is, again, is it a joke we're not getting? I don't know, but it just, none of these songs make sense to me. They don't fit, they just don't flow, and I can definitely say it's his worst that was ever seen from him. But yeah, I mean, you've seen in this video, you've seen me comparing a lot from the progression of the last album, Hurry Up We're Dreaming, to this album, and the reason I really just made that comparison is because that was seen as his magnum opus. That was M83's just big project. He even said that this is his life album, and the fact that it's just gone from that to this is just very, very strange. And to call it a really disappointment is probably an understatement. I was just so looking forward to seeing the progression from what his last album did, and it just isn't there, and it's such a shame, really. But yeah, it's definitely not a worthy successor to it whatsoever, and I can definitely say I will not be returning to this any time soon, if not really at all. So So I've not really decided to do any sort of score system on this channel, just because I think the whole like scoring thing has become such a staple and such an annoyance, I think, in kind of the whole music reviewing scene. There's been many times where people would even like look at a review and then look at the number and then not even read the review, whatever, and then just comment based on the number, score, whatever, and not on the person's opinion. But I just want kind of you to listen to my opinion rather than just look at a number or any sort of rating and take that as it is and then just not listen to what I've got to say about it, really. But yeah, that's kind of the system I want to work on. You kind of get my opinion. I really hope you've got my opinion from this album, because it's kind of obvious what I really think. But yeah, I'm not going to use any sort of scoring system, but you need to just let me know what you think, really. I mean, I'd love to know if people really did like this thing, because I can't really see any redeeming qualities. Well, maybe, but mostly no. Not at all. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this first review. I mean, it's my first review. It's not perfect. I'm still trying to figure out the whole setup and the whole speaking to the camera thing is really weird still. I'm still getting used to that. It's very strange. But yeah, let me know any kind of suggestions what I could do with this whole setup thing. I mean, we've got these vinyls behind me. I mean, that's a relevant thing, but if you could let me know any kind of suggestions, yeah, if you can please let me know. That'd be much appreciated, really. But yeah, I'll see you in the next review. I'm trying to do one of these a week, hopefully. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next review. So, thanks for watching. Goodbye.